Hi, everybody. John here at PT, Dan with Sandler Training. How are we,
Hey,
Dan?
John. I'm good. Thanks for asking.
You betcha. So let's talk about conferences. The season is upon us. We're recording this in mid to late January. Sorry, I had to look at a calendar for the date. And we start them next month, and they run pretty heavily through April, May for us, and then a little bit again in the fall. And I was thinking about what the things are that you need to make sure are sort of those keys to success that happen so you come back with whatever it is the reason you went in the first place. And then I was also thinking a little bit about what's one thing maybe that you need to think about changing or doing differently, because like everything else, conferences are evolving, et cetera. So can you talk about those keys to success and something to think about doing different?
Yeah, sure. So let's pretend I'm a VP of sales and you're a sales manager. Okay. So
Yep.
you work for me and you come to me and say, "Hey, Dan, we're looking at going to the ABC conference in
Yep.
2 months." Okay. My first question to you should be, why? Why are you wanting to go? And you
Yep.
would say, think of a conference you're going to coming up.
Yeah, no, I would say, hey, based on being there last year and the clientele that we acquired, the growing clientele that we have in the audience, one, we have a lot of clients that are there now. We want to see those people. We want to continue to evolve those relationships, and we want to learn things that we don't learn over the phone that we get face to face. We want to help have them introduce us to other people. And I want to have the opportunity to stand there and have conversations and come back with a list of people that I'm ready to talk to and close thereafter the next 30 days or so.
So what would make that a successful conference for you?
Yep. And so at that point, I provide numbers on leads that I'd come back with relative to the solidness of the conversations I had and ultimately how many clients I expect to get and what that ROI would then look like short term, long term.
See, and I like that because that's so different than how most people go to conferences. Hey, boss, there's a conference out in Las Vegas. We should go. 8 of our customers will be there, blah, blah, blah. And there's no game plan. There's no
Mhm.
setup as to what makes this successful. And so we go and we show up and we come back and we had great dinners, we had great small group interactions, but then what? So there's two things here when it comes to conferences, trade show booth. Putting up a booth is the same thing. Number one is you have to know exactly what you're going to do when you go.
Yep.
I want to have, and what do those numbers look like? I want to have this many meetings. I want to have this many potential prospects for me to follow up with, blah, 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 whatever, but come up with numbers on things so you know that that's successful. Number two is when you come back from the show, you have to have in your calendar when you're going to follow up with people.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times in the world of sales it happens all the time. They
It's
go to
so
these
bizarre.
conferences, they come back with all these leads. 4 months later, they've never called a single
Sitting
one.
in the drawer. Yep.
Oh my goodness, what a waste of time and money. So have this stuff written out. Make sure you're following it. And then you know what? If you go and those numbers are not hit, maybe you don't go next year.
Correct. Well, and I think there's a few other things that might be between the lines a little bit. So we do little things like the one conference I was thinking of, I think we've got about 15 clients that will be there. We will reach out to them in advance and say, hey, can you think about somebody that you could bring over and introduce us to that may benefit from what we do? So we're going to use, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but we're going to get their help in driving qualified individuals to conversations with us. So there are little tactics like that that you can do. The other thing that I'd say is, especially for big conferences, it's one of the biggest things that people start hiring us for. And this isn't a pitch around hiring us for calling, but if they're just going to sit in the drawer and 4 months later, you're still staring at them. Most people are writing 5, 10, $15,000 checks to go to these events. Are you kidding me? They're still in the drawer. Like turn them over to somebody that's going to call them, even if it's internal. We do the same thing. We get back, we hand it to a caller. We practice what we preach. Go book out my calendar. Here's what I need. There's a lot of ways to accomplish the things that you need to make it successful that you don't necessarily want to do.
You said something which was magic if people picked up on it, and that is you're going to see your customers, your clients, but you're calling them ahead of time to see if they can introduce you and bring you somebody with them to meet you. And
Yes.
and I that's different because most people will go, yeah, you know what, our top 3 customers are going to be there. We need to be there too. And that's the end of it.
Yes.
Well, why don't you ask those top 3 customers to bring somebody to your booth or to bring somebody to lunch with you with
Yep.
them? and get some business out of that. So I like where you went with that. We need to be very proactive in going to these things. They suck up a lot of money, but more importantly, they suck up a lot of time and energy. They're tiring. So let's make sure we're going to make some stuff out of this.
Yeah, one other creative thing, and I don't know if it works I don't think it works in every conference environment, but at least half probably. There was a group that came to us and said, "Hey, we're going to this conference. There's about 10,000 people there. So it's a massive conference." He said, "We want to drive activity to our booth by setting up 10-minute conversations with people in advance. We know only about half of them will show, so we're going to ask you to triple book us because we'll have multiple people at the booth." And when they went to the conference, between our efforts, their efforts, etc., they had a 3-day event, and they had, I think the number was somewhere around 70 appointments set. They figured 35 would happen. So they went in knowing, hey, we've got these 35 conversations plus whatever else we can drive to the booth, but they felt that those would be more qualified conversations too. So things like that.
Oh, and I like where you're going with that. Again, it's thinking outside the box. Don't have a booth just for the sake of having a booth. Have
Yep.
a booth because you want people to come in and meet with you and schedule
Yes.
those.
Yes. Yeah. So, all right, everybody. See you again tomorrow.
Take care.